Good morning, it's Christopher Taylor with Sovereign Harmony here on the hill Sunday, June 8th, in the midst of June gloom. As you can see, pretty foggy, drizzly, typical weather here in Southern California. A lot of tourists come out Southern California in June and think, oh, how come we haven't saw the sun? Well, you don't see the sun in June in Southern California, not near the coast anyway. You can go inland and you can for sure be hot. But anywhere within the vicinity of the coast, it's like this. But it's okay. It's fine. It's a little chilly, a little muggy, but lots of stuff going on this week astrologically. So I want to talk about the week of June 8th to the 14th. Most of which is going to be concentrated in the first few days of this week through about Wednesday or so. Okay. So we got a couple of huge things going on. One is we got the full moon in Sagittarius. That'll be on Wednesday. We'll talk about that. But before we get to that, we've got Jupiter entering Cancer tomorrow on Monday. Okay. And then that Jupiter is going to make an immediate square to the Saturn-Neptune conjunction that, again, is building this summer and will become exact next February. We'll talk more about that next week because that Jupiter will be exact with Saturn and Neptune next week. It's going to come in within 1 degree orb this week, but more importantly next week. What I want to talk about this week is going to be Mercury. It's kind of the big player this week as far as that Jupiter conjunction or square to the Saturn-Neptune conjunction, because Mercury is going to carry Jupiter across that threshold from Gemini into Cancer. That's going to happen today and tomorrow. So what happens today on Sunday is interesting because we have the start of the next Mercury-Jupiter cycle with the conjunction of Mercury and Jupiter here, but it's at the 29th degree of Gemini. So Jupiter is at the end of its rope with Gemini. It's entered, I think, May 25th of last year. So we're a little bit over a year where Jupiter's been in Gemini. It's been all about weighing our options, seeing things from a wider perspective, very non-committal, very putting our fingers in lots of pies to figure out what is the best method, what is the best path, etc. What is the best information to take on or release, okay? With Mercury joining Jupiter at 29 degrees Gemini, this is the Antarctic degree, the final degree, which is very, very significant, important. Okay, critical degree is what they call it sometimes. And it's interesting that it is the start of the new Mercury-Jupiter cycle while Jupiter is finishing its time in Gemini. So what this says is that, all this mowing that we've done since last spring, so the last 12, 13 months or so, now it's kind of culminating to this idea of here's where I want to go with it. So the big idea, the big communication that we want to put out there, okay, that is kind of potent today. It's at its very peak. And then as soon as it peaks, Mercury is going to cross over to Cancer, like literally about 2 to 3 hours after Mercury joins Jupiter exactly at 29 degrees Gemini today on Sunday, June 8th. With less than 3 hours later, Mercury is going to enter Cancer. So think of Mercury as being like the scout, okay? Because Jupiter is about to enter Cancer tomorrow on June 9th, and Mercury is acting as a scout. It's going to enter Cancer, scope it out, and say, all right, Jupiter, come on in. It looks okay to me. And what Mercury is going to do tomorrow is form an immediate square to Saturn and Aries and a square to Neptune and Aries, okay? And both Saturn and Neptune are coming into their 1 degree orb, so within 1 degree of each other starting tomorrow. So very significant time these next couple of days. And that 1 degree orb, excuse me, will be with us through the end of August. So for the rest of the summer, essentially, we have Saturn and Neptune within a degree of each other, never touching each other, never forming that conjunction. That conjunction won't happen until February of next year. And again, we'll talk more about that next week. I talk all about that in my webinar. Wink, wink. So go check that out on Christopher Taylor - Sovereign Harmony YouTube channel. Look at the Saturn-Neptune conjunction. Very important stuff. But anyway, Mercury is kind of scouting that out. So on a mental level, we're getting ready for what that Jupiter square to the Saturn-Neptune conjunction means for us and what that's setting up over the next 6 to 8 months, really. Okay. And what it is, generally what it's about is, Saturn, Neptune, and Aries is asking us to fully embody our highest intentions, our highest spiritual intentions here in this body, now in this life. It's like we're ready to do that. Okay. And what Jupiter and Cancer is going to do is challenge that by diving us deeper into our conditioning. So what, we think of it as like signing the contract we signed before coming into this incarnation the Saturn-Neptune conjunction in Aries is saying, yeah, this is what you signed up for, so let's do it. Okay, Jupiter in Cancer is saying, but this is all the conditioning that you chose to go through to get here. Okay, so it's all of our conditioning agents, which includes parents, but also it includes your micro culture, right? Because even within like the US, for example, there are different micro cultures. If you're from the South, if you're from New England, if you're from the Northwest, if you're from California, the Midwest, whatever it is, there are certain expectations in those cultures and whatnot. And so Jupiter in Cancer has a lot to do with that cultural conditioning, that familial conditioning, okay? And what Jupiter is going to be asking us to do over the coming months is to dive into that and to grow through it and out of it. Because remember, the only way out is through. So whether you consider it growing out of something or going through something, it's the same thing. But that's what Jupiter in Cancer is going to be asking us to do. So it is a challenge here, especially in this first part, which again, we'll talk more about next week. But on a mental level, with Mercury hitting this square to Saturn and Neptune, it's going to be reminding us like, aha, yes, we are ready to be here now, as we contracted to do. But what are the things we still have to like face, process, and consider, okay, that have maybe held us back to this point? And then look at them in a different way, and then again, grow through them, grow out of them, because now's the time, okay? So Mercury's setting up that stage here. Also tomorrow on Monday, so we have, again, Saturn and Neptune coming into 1 degree orb. That'll last the rest of the summer. That starts tomorrow. We have Jupiter entering Cancer. That starts tomorrow. That'll be with us till the end of June next year, 2026. And we're going to have Mercury squaring Saturn and Neptune conjunction, setting the stage for the Jupiter square that will be exact next week and then fade off in the weeks to come. But in 2 weeks, we'll have a new moon that will actually emphasize that Jupiter square to that Saturn-Neptune conjunction, which kind of puts an energy out for the next 6 to 8 months. So again, we will get more into that next week. But what also happens tomorrow is a Venus square to Pluto. Venus in Taurus, just freshly into Taurus just the other day. I think it was on Friday, Thursday or Friday. And it's squaring Pluto in Aquarius, okay? And so this is a little internal battle. Venus in Taurus loves comfort. It loves familiarity. So again, going back to that theme of conditioning, etc. Okay, so what do we habitually find helpful for ourselves as far as feeling comfortable? And here we go. We got some bikes coming by. We'll let them come by.
Hi.
What's going on?
Only 4 total. Yo, what's up?
What's going on? All right, a little bike trail here, but anyway, they can join the live. And so where I was going with that is, so Venus in Taurus really likes the comfort level. Pluto in Aquarius is all about heading to the future. It's about transforming for good toward our future. Forget the past, kind of an energy. Okay, so there's a little bit of an internal battle that you'll probably feel brewing later today, Sunday, especially on Monday, and then kind of fading off on Tuesday, just before Wednesday's full moon in Sagittarius, okay? And so this is kind of an internal checkpoint where we're saying, yeah, we are really ready to, again, be in our contracts here in this life, but there are some comforts we might want to like look over, consider, and say, is this really serving me, okay? And it can be a tough release at this point, because a lot of these, Taurus has a lot to do with habits, okay? And it's habits that make us comfortable. Venus loves that stuff. Venus is the ruler of Taurus, okay? So this can be a challenging thing, and it's going to challenge us to transform our relationship to ourselves as well as to others in relation to our relationship to ourselves, okay? So we might find some relationship struggles over the next couple of days, but that's going to be a reflection of any resistance that we're having internally to releasing comforts in favor of moving forward to the future. So there might be people in our lives that are basically acting as catalysts that say, hey, enough with this little comfort zone of yours. This is where we intend to head. And they might remind you of that. They might frustrate you because it might be more comfortable to stay where you are, right? But just see other people as a blessing in disguise in that case, okay? So busy first part of the week. Then on Tuesday, we have Mars in Leo forming a trine to Chiron in Aries. This, I'm just going to wrap into the full moon, because this full moon on Wednesday, early Wednesday morning on Pacific time. So really, we're in the full moon energy right now. In fact, I woke up at like 5 in the morning this morning, like someone poked me in the head. Always don't sleep very well during full moons, But, add that Mercury-Jupiter conjunction in Gemini, 29 degrees Gemini today, and so like there's a lot of mental energy going on. So I don't sleep very well under those conditions. But anyway, so we're in that full moon energy. That full moon in Sagittarius is going to kind of pull in that trine as part of a grand trine, really, with that Mars and Chiron. So it's the moon in Sag forming a trine to Mars in Leo and a trine to Chiron in Aries. So it's a grand trine in fire, essentially, okay? And so it's kind of a go time energy. Anytime you get fire energy, it's moving. So based on what's coming in here on Sunday with this initiation of the Mercury-Jupiter cycle at the last degree of Gemini, we've come to some conclusion, some big idea, some big communication that we want to put out there. Then we're challenged to, look at our comfort zone, as Mercury is also scouting out the path for this greater, set of energy for the next several months, where we're going to be battling our conditioning in favor of our contract, essentially. Okay, and then this full moon comes in and says, it's time to go with it. It's time to go, like, get excited. There could be some big messages that come in, okay? Some realizations that hit us and that say, whoa, I never saw it that way. Or, someone just brings you this perspective and it changes everything, okay? And with Mars and Leo, we're in a place, after that whole retrograde we just had with Mars, we're in a more confident place. We know what we want to do with that energy. With Chiron and Aries, it's this idea of we've been facing ourselves since 2018 when it comes to our wounding associated with not being good enough, not being capable enough, etc. And so we're in a position where we're like, well, no matter how capable we feel we are, it is go time. It is time to move. It is time to move on these ideas. Okay, so very exciting, very energetic time right now. Okay, and then right after this on Wednesday, we'll have a sextile between Mercury and Venus. So that's Mercury freshly in Cancer as it enters Cancer today, and then Venus, which just entered Taurus on Thursday, Friday time frame. They're going to form a sextile, pleasant sextile, and with Venus coming off of that square to Pluto, remember on Monday, it's with that being very tense. This has a chance of kind of providing reassurance and a better manner of articulating. So what those ideas that come through, that inspiration that moves through us that we want to go now, there's a way to articulate that better in a more practical and grounded manner, because Cancer and Taurus are very practical, very about safety and security and things like that. So we might be able to take these big ideas that fall outside of that zone of safety and security and anchor them in a better way. Okay, and so there might be a sense of reassurance. Okay, after that tenseness of, ooh, my comfort, I don't want to release my comfort, there might be a sense of reassurance that we could have comfort on the other side of it as well. Okay, so just our familiar comfort isn't the only comfort. That comfort can exist in many different forms. And so that's something what we might be ready for. So that Mercury Venus could really just serve to push us forward in a way that we're willing to embrace the new, willing to embrace the future, essentially, in a new way. So again, we'll have more on the Jupiter squaring Saturn Neptune conjunction in Aries next week as it becomes more exact. But really this full moon in Sagittarius, combined with the other things that are going on now, Mercury again is scouting that out for Jupiter. But today might be some big ideas, big communications that want to come through. And then over the next few days with this full moon, it's the time to do it. It's the time to move. It's the time to say, let's do something different. Let's kick that comfort zone out of the way. Okay. So thanks for joining me. It's Christopher Taylor, Sovereign Harmony, signing out. We'll see you again next week. Have a good one.